Good morning, everybody, on the Get My Life Back Facebook page. This is an impromptu live. I just thought I'd pop in and do a quick live, hopefully it'll be quick, on how to manage your emotions during times of stress, pressure, and uncertainty. Now, we can't deny what's going on in the world today. We're all experiencing this huge energetic shift of things that are just coming to the forefront, things that are being exposed that were once hidden. We're still dealing with COVID-19, slowly coming out of that here in the UK. And just a whole load of things that are going on in the world, things that we don't even know about that are happening. And it's causing a huge emotional shift in many individuals, myself included. And it's taken us some work, internal work, to be able to keep ourselves grounded, calm, and in a state of peace so that we can still be of service. And I have to say that if I wasn't doing my internal work, I wouldn't be able to show up on this live today. So yeah, I'm sure that you're feeling it. Those of you who are watching live, you're welcome. Those of you who are watching the replay, put hashtag replay in the comments and obviously comment as I go along in this video. And what I intend to share is how we can utilize as a formula that I use on myself, I use with my clients, which I have come up with the acronym S.P.A.C.E. How we can utilize that to keep ourselves focused, keep ourselves in a position of calm, keep ourselves grounded in peace, no matter what is going on around us. It's not easy, but at least if you have something that you can utilize, then that can help carry you through for times of pressure, times of stress, times of uncertainty. People are uncertain, especially around the COVID-19, easing out the lockdown, what their jobs are going to look like, what business is going to look like, what going back to, there isn't even a normality, but to our regular routines, what that's going to look like, how that's going to change. We've all heard of what's happening over in the States. How is that going to infiltrate our organisations and the way we do things, the way we communicate with each other, the way we show up in humanity, the way we serve humanity? So there's a lot going on. So hopefully you will find this video useful. And if you do, please feel free to share. You don't have to ask me permission. Feel free to share with those who you know need to hear this message. And I pray that it will be of benefit to you. This is what I'm feeling led to show up with at this time and to serve you in this way. And obviously, if you require something more, something deeper in the way of help, assistance or service, then do send me a direct message and let's arrange a time to have a chat. So, as I mentioned, the things that are happening at the moment. So we can find ourselves, and if you see me looking down, it's because I've got my notes, so that I'm not going to be on here for an hour or so. When we're in times of pressure, stress, uncertainty, we can find our emotions going all over the place. It's natural, okay? Even if you've never experienced new or your emotions showing up in certain ways, you think, oh my goodness, why am I feeling like this? And I never react like this, and why? And, just understand the times that we're in or the situation that you're in. It could be that you've returned back to work and all of a sudden the pressures come on you. It could be that you've returned back to work or returned back to your business and there's uncertainty about it. And you'll find that you're reacting in different ways that you wouldn't normally react, and you feel that you're almost out of control. Know that it's normal for the times that you're in. So it's about you giving yourself grace and understanding the nature of emotions and how our emotions can go up and down like waves of the sea. One minute they could be calm, next minute they could be so erratic, you just don't know where you are. So it's about understanding how to ride those waves of the emotions. I always describe it like being a surfer. And when a surfer goes out to sea and rides the waves, an experienced surfer knows how to ride those waves. He's had experience, he or she's had experience. They've trained on about the sea, the matters of the sea, the currents of the sea, the waves, which waves to ride and which waves to just surf, and all sorts of things. So that when they see a wave coming towards them, they're not going to be alarmed and try to run away in the midst of the sea from this big wave, which they're supposed to be surfing. And it's the same with the human nature. We need to understand about our emotions, the state of our emotional health, so that when we are in times of pressure, stress, and uncertainty, we know how to manage our emotions and our well-being in a healthy way. Because if we don't know how to do it, we will use sabotage tactics, such as turning to things like alcohol, turning to things like drugs, turning to things like spending lots of time in pleasure that is not right for us or our well-being or our mindset, and can actually, we will utilize those things to numb us, to numb those emotions rather than process them. And as we know, when we numb, when we try to suppress the emotions, that creates dis-ease in the body and in the mind and the soul. So, using the SPACE formula that I use on myself and with my clients, it's about gifting yourself what I call space. Because when we're living lives in the hustle and bustle, we're busy, we're rushing here and there at a fast pace, you don't have time to gift yourself space. You don't have time to process those emotions that you're going through. You use the numbing effect. You use the suppression effect. You numb it down, you suppress it down until you feel you've got the time to deal with that. And normally we find we don't have the time. So we carry on through life with these suppressed emotions, with these numbing, and hoping that we get through. But what happens is you face the next stressful event, you face the next form of pressure, you face the next form of uncertainty. And maybe those same emotions will come up again, but more with a vengeance, because you've not spent time, quality time, processing those emotions that came up in the first instance. So gifting yourself space is what's going to help you. So the first word, the first letter using the acronym SPACE is to stop and take a step back. Like I mentioned earlier, we spend most of our times at a fast pace, hurrying, rushing from one thing to another. Sometimes it's not our own fault, sometimes it's put on us. And when you don't have that opportunity to stop and to take a step back, you won't be able to see what is going on in what I call a bigger picture. Because sometimes we could take things out of context and say, oh my goodness, this is happening, and why is it happening to me? And we can fall into that victim mode quite unconsciously and innocently, instead of taking that step back and stopping and saying, this is interesting. I notice that these emotions are happening for me, or I'm feeling this way. What do I get to learn from this? And it's as simple as that, just stopping and taking that step back. Then the letter P is about pausing and being present. So pausing and being present with those emotions that you have noticed are coming up. So for example, in this current climate that we're in with the COVID-19 and all that's happening over in the States, possibly you've noticed emotions such as anger coming up, like deep anger coming up for you, maybe deep sorrow, maybe deep grief, maybe shock, surprise, maybe elements of unforgiveness, resentment, bitterness is coming up, and a whole host of other emotions. And taking that step back and stopping and observing helps us to then move forward. So being present with those emotions, you're just observing those emotions. You're not doing anything with them yet, but you're just observing them. You're just realizing that they're present there. The anger is present. The unforgiveness is present. The jealousy or whatever it is present. And basically those emotions show up as a result of what we're thinking. But those emotions are showing up like, you know, it's like you're seeing oil float up to the surface of water. And the emotions are there and they're saying, okay, we're here. What are you going to do with us? And that's where you get to make the choice. And as I mentioned earlier, some people choose to, they kind of see the emotions and they're like, I can't deal with that right now. I'm just going to suppress it. And then they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to process it. And when we suppress the emotions, those emotions get suppressed in our body. Our body has memory. Our body has cells. Okay. So stopping, taking a step back, observing the emotions that are coming up, pausing and being present with those emotions. And then the next letter, A, is acknowledging those emotions. So we acknowledge the emotions. Yes, okay, I can see these emotions of anger, bitterness, resentment, unforgiveness. I see you. I acknowledge you. And it's about acknowledging them, but not becoming attached to them. So we acknowledge, I see you anger, I see you resentment, I see you bitterness, I see you shock, I see you surprise, I see you grief, I see you sorrow. But I am not those emotions. The moment we become attached to those emotions are when we start saying, I am. I am anxious, I am depressed, I am fearful, I am afraid, I am grieving, I am... And these are all innocent and they're perfectly fine in some contexts. However, when we continue to use those phrases with the I am, we become attached to them and we make those emotions as we are. Those emotions become our character, they become our habits, and they become who we are. And we are not our emotions. We can interchange those words and say, I'm experiencing, I notice that I'm experiencing anger. I notice at this time I'm experiencing shock. I notice at this time I'm experiencing grief. I notice at this time I'm feeling really low and depressed. I notice at this time I have feelings of self-pity coming up for me. And when we do that, when we use those terms, when we describe the emotions in that context, we are outside of those emotions and we become the observer rather than being part of, entrenched in those emotions. Because when we're entrenched in those emotions, that is what keeps us stuck. We can become so stuck that we don't know what to do, we don't know how to process. And in order to go forward to the next stage, to be able to process and clear those emotions in a healthy way, we need to be the observers. And I've noticed this time and time, and of late, definitely, the amount of people who don't know how to process their emotions in a healthy way. And so it becomes the suppressed emotions, it becomes the stuck emotions, because innocently you have formed those emotions to be part of you. So again, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm grieving, I'm feeling grief, I'm sorrowful. Like I said, these are fine in certain contexts and they're said quite innocently, but if you desire to process your emotions in a healthy way, you need to become the observer. You need to stop, take a step back. You need to pause and be present with those emotions. You need to acknowledge them and not become attached to them. And then the next stage is to start clearing and processing those emotions. Now, remember what I said earlier, we cannot process those emotions effectively and healthily if we're not creating the space and the time to do so. We cannot do it whilst we're rushing at 100 miles an hour and doing things at a fast pace. As I always say to my clients and to people, you cannot change a flat tire on a vehicle when it's speeding down the road at 100 miles an hour. I'll say that again. You cannot change a flat tire on a vehicle when it's speeding down the road at 100 miles an hour. It's impossible. And so it is the same with our lives today. You cannot effectively process and manage your emotions in a healthy way when you're busy rushing around, attending to everybody else, putting out fires here and there, and you've not created that space and time for you to clear and process your emotions. This is why, for those of us who are still able to show up and to be of service in times of stress, pressure, and uncertainty, is because we've taken the time to process our emotions, to do our internal work, to strengthen ourselves up internally, to heal from traumas, etc., so that we can show up and be the best of service that we can be. So clearing and processing the emotions. How do we do that? There are several ways to do that, but I'm just going to mention one or two. So it's about looking at the emotion or the emotions that are not serving you, that you see, oh, okay, this emotion has come up. How is it making me feel? Let's go back to the emotion of anger or frustration, which I'm seeing a lot of now on social media. People saying that they're frustrated, they're fearful, they're angry. Okay, so we're observing it. How do we clear it? We clear it by, first, like I said, we've acknowledged it, we're processing it. We clear it by, number one, not making it wrong, because it's not wrong to feel those emotions. It's natural as part of the human makeup. So not to make it wrong, not to feel guilty about those emotions as well. And you may find it useful to do things like speaking with somebody about how you are feeling, clearing those emotions through doing journaling, doing what I call worry dumping. You might find it useful to clear and process those emotions through writing, if you're creative and you can write. And maybe you say, well, I'm not creatively enough. Then talk. You might want to do a video and just speak to the video. You might want to do an audio and just speak to the audio. You might find that by moving your body helps you to clear and process those emotions. Some people say to me, yes, Leon, I just need to go for a walk, or I just need to exercise it off, and then afterwards they feel better. So there are different ways of clearing and processing the emotion. Those are just a few that I've mentioned. There are a lot more. When I work with my clients in their de-stress and reset sessions, we do all sorts of things depending on what is showing up and what needs to be healed. So it's not one thing or one formula will fix this. No, it's about who you are as a person and what emotions are showing up for you. So who you are as a person and what emotions are showing up for you, will you then find the correct method, way, formula, solution to be able to correctly process those emotions and clear them in a healthy way. I hope that makes sense. And then the last part of the SPACE formula is elevate. So we want to elevate into our healthy emotions. We want to elevate in healthy emotions that we call joy, happiness, peace, calm, serenity, tranquility, kindness, gentleness, goodness. Those type of emotions which we want more of, but sometimes we find it hard to access, you know. So how do we elevate? Well, the thing is, there's a criteria of how to move up into your emotions, okay? So it's a bit like an elevator. We've got level 0, where if you've heard my story before, I've been at level 0 where I was severely depressed to the point of suicidal thoughts, okay? So level 0, you can't go from level 0 straight up to level 12, for example. Okay. It will just be too much for the brain to compute. It'll be too much for the body to process. And normally when people try to do that, it's normally done through a numbing effect. So I'm feeling down, so I'm going to take something that's a quick fix that will just shoot me back up to an elevated place. Things like using alcohol, drugs, for example, are very commonly misused to deal with and process things like emotions, to shoot you up into that elevated place. The thing is, the quicker you go up to an elevated emotion, the sharper and the quicker you will drop back down once the effects of the tool that you've used is no longer helping you to sustain at that level. It's a process, okay? And sometimes you need to elevate your way through the emotions in order to move upwards. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a chart on my social media, which shows you the different levels, the different elevations of emotions. There are different pictures and picture forms of that, but I will try and put something together so it will make better sense. So the best way is, in order to elevate, is to go through natural processes of, and some of them I've mentioned previously in terms of clearing the clearing process of the emotions. So going for a walk, moving the body, getting outdoors, getting outside in the sunshine. The sun is a disinfectant, in case you didn't know. And when that sun penetrates into the cells of our body, it actually helps to clear our system, which is why we feel better when we're in the sunshine, which is why we feel better when we're outside and connecting with nature, when we're breathing in natural oxygen, especially when we're close to plants and we're close to trees. We want to utilize tools like gratitude. Yes, it can be hard when you're in the depths of sorrow, of grief and depression and anger, to even think, oh my goodness, what can I be so grateful for right now? But if you can come up with 3 things that you can be grateful for and just anchor on those 3 things throughout your day, trust me, it will help you tremendously. Other things that you can utilize are, like I mentioned, writing letters, speaking with someone in confidence about how you're feeling, because sometimes when there's different ways of processing emotions. Some of us are internal processors, so we need to go away. We need to be in that darkened room. We need to lie down and process what is going on. Some of us are external processors, so we find it valuable speaking with someone, being externally showing our emotions. Again, don't label it, this is right, this is wrong. It's what works for you as an individual. Doing lots of soul care and self-care is important at this time. So you might find it useful to say, you know what, I need to be kind to myself. I'm going to take regular breaks throughout my day, more than I would normally. I'm going to drink lots of water, making sure that I'm hydrated, because we're made up of 70% water, so we're told. And by staying hydrated, that helps with our hormones, and it also helps to clear out those emotions that are not serving us well. Other ways of elevating your emotions is making sure that you feed yourself nutritionally. And I'm not talking about just food here, nutritionally. I'm talking about what you're watching, what you're hearing, what you're reading. Is what you're watching, what you're hearing, what you're reading, what you're listening to, is that contributing towards keeping you in a lower end of emotions? Possibly is. So identify that and feed into things that will help you feel in a better place emotionally. Watch things that will help raise your vibrations. Listen to podcasts or meaningful messages that will help you feel much better. Feed yourself nutritionally, the plant foods, the natural foods, the nuts, the seeds, the oils, the good oils, because we need good oils, like your avocado, your coconut, your nut oils, because our brain is made up of 70% fat. And part of the processing of the emotions requires energy from the brain, also requires hormonal energy as well. And hormones are normally synthesized through fatty acids. So we need to feed ourselves nutritionally on fats, on the macronutrients that I called, the good carbohydrates of your vegetables, your fruits, your waters, your vitamins, your minerals, making sure that you're equipped with those things, and your proteins, your good healthy proteins as well. Making sure that you're getting good quality sleep, and you're moving your body, and you're connected to your values and your passions at this time, because it can be easy to be swayed off things when you're in times of pressure and stress and uncertainty. You're being moved left and right, you're swaying left and right, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, who am I, where am I, what am I doing, what am I standing for? And someone else is giving their opinions, which you will then find that you're taking on their opinions. You're like, no, I don't normally think this way. That's not what I stand for. That's not what I'm attached to. So it's important that you understand what your values are, what you stand for, what your passions are, because that is what's going to help you be in that elevated place of your emotions. So I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to run through this very quickly again. So when you're managing your emotions and your well-being during times of stress, pressure, and uncertainty, gift yourself space. And I've used the word space as an acronym. So gift yourself space in terms of slowing down, stepping back, stopping, so that you can observe what is going on with you emotionally. Pausing and being present with those emotions, not making them wrong or right, but just pausing and being present with them. Acknowledging those emotions, but not becoming attached to those emotions. And when I say those emotions, I'll talk about the emotions that rise up as a result of pressure, stress, and uncertainty, the ones that I mentioned before. So the anger, the frustration, the fear, the sorrow, the grief, the jealousy, the unforgiveness, etc. And then C is the clearing and the processing of those emotions, using healthy methods to clear those emotions, to process them, so that you're not suppressing and you're not numbing them. And then E, elevating and keeping yourself in that place of higher, healthier emotions. So, my dears, if you find this video useful and beneficial, please share with others you know need to hear this message. Look after yourselves during this time of pressure, stress, and uncertainty. Do lots of self-care. Do lots of soul care. If you need more information about self-care and soul care, there's lots of information around. Send me a direct message. I'm happy to help you. If you need to talk further about processing your emotions, if you want to de-stress and reset your mind, your emotions, your body, your life at this time, send me a direct message. Let's book a consultation. A consultation is free. It's free to talk with me, okay? And be in that place of wellness. Don't handle this alone. Don't do it alone. Try not to get caught up in the frenzy of what's going on out there, because you'll find that that will suppress your immune system. And at this time, guys, remember, we're still in COVID-19. Regardless of lockdowns being eased, we're still in the midst of COVID-19. And you need your immune system to be in a good, healthy place. All right. So I'm going to sign off. I'm going to go over to Instagram and do the live there. And I will see you on another video or in another post. So take care, look after yourself, and I'll speak with you soon.